Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and a link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. Most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. We are joined by The Plain Truth, Sleeping Warrior, Ranty Flat Earth, Mark Doxy, and Chocolate Saying. How you all doing?
Doing good,
Hello.
doing good.
Yeah, I'm doing good, mate. Doing good.
Did you hear me?
We heard
I don't know,
you beep
did you beep the horn?
Yeah.
We did, we heard.
it. Yeah. I figured. I was just teasing.
You need to turn your volume up a little bit, though. You are quiet.
I'll sort that out.
I'm on my phone.
That's alright, I'll sort that out. Did you hear my kid making all that racket?
Nah. Never read anything.
It's endearing. It's a part of the show, you know?
Yeah, I suppose. No, I don't look at it that way.
It's like Arwen's birds when he's outside and you can hear the birds chirping.
Right. That should be a bit better. Should we do some housekeeping? Any signs of curvature, anybody?
Yeah, Slice Barcane claims that I've got curvature in some of my most recent work. So for the 5th time, Slice Barcane, I'd like you to address it, please, at some point. Let's see what you got for your interpretations of curvature in my most recent work, you utter buffoon.
Axial rotation? Any signs of that,
Nope.
anybody?
Nope.
Pressurized system next to a vacuum? Any
Yes,
evidence?
Red's Rhetoric claims he's got the debunk for that one. So Red's Rhetoric, he claims it's based on gravity, the fictional force that nobody can prove exists. So
Wait a minute. So gravity can make a vacuum next to a non-vacuum.
according to Red's Rhetoric.
Really?
I'd like to see him demonstrate a vacuum that get next to a non-vacuum.
Isn't that what they say? That
Well, yeah,
the error,
it just
here,
is.
the gravity.
Yep.
That's what they say, right?
Hmm.
I mean, I know it sounds silly, but what they say.
Are we done with the housekeeping?
No. Self-perpetuating molten iron core? Any signs of that, anybody?
Yeah, Paul Voigt's the one that claims for that one. So Paul Voigt we're waiting for evidence from Paul Voigt on that one. No one's got evidence of R, Nathan. Come on.
Comes after Q.
Not good enough. It's not scientific enough for me, Ranty. I'm sorry. So there was one other thing. It's not really housekeeping, but it's just kind of what will become an ongoing issue. So we've got Red's Rhetoric and Sean Hufford, the Rumpus, Gem Panda. I'm sure there's one other. I can't remember the other, but there's several people that we are calling out for their errors. Now, we've had Mick West up against the wall. He's the only one that's actually had any courage to come on and defend his position. And his position is that his calculation is an absolute size calculation and therefore does not require any perspective applying because that applies only to the target. Therefore, it is an application error. So after discussing this with Mick West, who has defended his position, we have then moved on to the people who have applied this calculation. Namely, Red's Rhetoric, Sean Hufford, Gem Panda, and the Rumpus. These are the people that so far we have called out because they have definitely used this calculator incorrectly. They have not accounted for perspective as a secondary function when applying the angular size change at distance to the target that they are analysing. So the function of the calculation they currently use is not comparable to viewing functionality. Therefore, user error, and the users in this instance are The Rumpus, Red's Rhetoric, Sean Hufford, and Jem Panda. These men are all cowards because they have started to go on their own channels and say, come on our channel and discuss X, Y, and Z. So I left them a comment yesterday pointing out that we have no requirement whatsoever to come onto anybody's channel to discuss anything because there's nothing being held over our heads. However, there is a glaring omission of this secondary function from their utilisation of their proof of nothing, presuppositional, perspective omitting curve calculator. So therefore, these guys are being called out by us, and we don't need them here in order to point out their gross errors. So if they choose to join via the public link, which is available to everybody, they can, like Mick West, come on to defend their position. And there's only two positions really that it can take. They can either deny perspective or apply perspective. Either will do. We make no concessions should they come on. They will all get their asses handed to them by us. But there's no motivation whatsoever for us to go elsewhere to discuss their failings and their errors. When it has been the case that there's been something extremely contentious, like with the Isle of Man when it was first being debated, we went on other people's platforms because we were being called out for our inaccuracies. So, this is now the case for you guys. The shoe is on the other foot. We are calling you out onto this open platform. Feel free to take advantage of that if you choose to, but be aware you are absolutely superfluous to requirements. We do not need you here in order to point out to the audience that you've made a mistake, that you've forgotten about perspective. So, that is all.
Worth also pointing out that I didn't see the hangout from last night, and nor did I see most of the hangout from the night before. I saw a clip from Sean, which is the focal point from yesterday, where he basically provided a straw man argument based on probably ignorance, but I reckon it was also probably deception, which is why Reds was confused. They had a 3-hour hangout based on Sean's misrepresentation, and that's really as far as it goes. I didn't see any of last night's hangout, and if there's anybody in chat that knows what the credible rebuttal was, just put it in chat so I can respond to it, because I haven't seen any of it. And I can respond because I'm pretty certain I know what they're going to say. I'd just like to know what they did actually say because I haven't seen it. So anybody in chat, if anybody knows what the credible rebuttal was from last night's chat hangout, put it in chat so I can see it.
One of the things that Red said yesterday was that we don't understand perspective. So if we do ever have someone come on, I think it would be interesting for them to simply lay out what they understand perspective to be. And
no. What they're trying to do there, let me explain. What they're trying to do there is try and shift the burden of proof onto us to try and discredit us with our perceived ignorance. Now, the fact of the matter is this. You're the guys that tell us that we live in a sphere, a spinning ball, or better known as a spinning testicle. And if you guys tell us that we live on a sphere and give us the application or the web page, in this case, MetaFlump, to test it, and we test it and it doesn't match the observation, and there are things that are missing from the calculator, then we are totally and utterly within our rights to ask the reason why. It is a logical fallacy of debate to reverse the burden of proof simply for questioning the official position. I will give a citation for that with 1 second, bear with me. But at the end of the day, whether we know perspective maths or not isn't the point. It cannot be used against us, and I'm not even going to entertain it because it's out there, right? The problem is you guys are not using it, and to compare it to perspective isn't the same as applying it first. You've got to apply it, and then you drop your hidden into it, and then see what happens.
Well, I was taking it for granted that it was an honest statement of discussion, so that if we define our terms, so that's all I was meaning, that they would define what they mean by it, and then we could analyze.
It's irrelevant whether we know it or not. The point is that it's not being considered, whatever that math may or may not be.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
We'd be better off just tactically arguing that we don't know what it is.
Well, I had this conversation with a flat earther who was in the comments saying, look, these guys are demanding that we know how perspective works, and I think as a flat earther we should know it. Why aren't you presenting this and just denying them this and making out like it's unimportant? And I said, you don't need to come up with an alternative to smash somebody's assertion. Now, in this
Correct.
instance, the assertion is that we live on a spinning ball, and here are the maths to prove it. Well, number one, they assume a radius. That's the main problem. The begging the question fallacy is the overriding problem here, and always will be. But if we are to beg the question and go into the calculations a little bit further down that stupid rabbit hole of proving nothing, then you also find that they exclude perspective. This is a fact. So, you, in your globe head calculations, exclude perspective. That's not our problem. However, there are people, I mean, Zachary Sabala just released a little taster of what people are looking at the moment. Go and check Good Times for All, GUDTIMS, number 4, all, YouTube channel, and you'll get a taster of what people are looking into at the moment in regards to perspective. Obviously, we want to move forward. However, the people who claim to have science backing them haven't got a decent answer for why the users of this standard model calculation have excluded perspective. That's why we're calling them out and saying, you guys, you haven't done this. We expect retractions for this. You've got it wrong.
So if you share my screen briefly, Nath, I've just gone on to Google and typed in commandments of rational debate or rules of debate, or I can't remember the exact search term, but you can find it quite easily. And it gives us this page, and number 8. You guys won't read this; it's too small. It says number 8 is the one that we need. So bear in mind, this is the perspective argument that's against us from them. Thou shalt not lay the burden of proof onto him that is questioning the claim. Burden of proof reversal. For example, Sean Hufford claims that we live on a spinning ball, then challenges us to prove that he's wrong. The burden of proof is on Sean, not Riley, since Sean made the extraordinary claim. So it doesn't matter whether or not we do or do not know the rules of perspective. And I think we should just concede that we don't. Let them tell us what it is, and then we'll say, right, apply it. Because there are more than one rule of perspective, depending on where you look. And I don't care what the rule of perspective is. I don't care what it's not. I don't care who's right and wrong over the maths. What I care about is that we're questioning the claim that perspective is not being applied. And it doesn't appear to be being applied. I've looked into it. Nathan's looked into it. We've played devil's advocate against ourselves, and we're right. Perspective is not being applied. It's being compared to, but only after the event. Put it in before the maths is applied, then apply your hidden, and then let's see what happens. Now, I was watching part of the hangout from Sean the other day when I think it was Hillel Finder. I might be wrong. I can't remember exactly who it was. One of the people in Sean's hangout said, but he wants it to be applied before the maths. And then with ridicule, it was dismissed. But he actually got the point that was being made. And then they went off on the tangent that wasn't being made, which was a straw man. But it was spotted by one of the people in the hangout, but it was dismissed with ridicule. But that don't make it true. And at the end of the day, the only credible or the only rebuttal that I've seen so far is the idea that, well, if you're going to reduce down the height of the mountain with respect to perspective, then you've also got to do it to the hidden value. And I thought about it for a minute and I thought, yeah, to be honest, that's what I'd argue. But then I thought about it properly and I thought, no, actually, hang on, the hidden value is not part of even perspective because you can't see it. If it's hidden by the landscape, it's not within your field of view. Therefore, by definition, it's outside of your field of view, therefore fails on perspective. It's not part of perspective because you can't see it. So you can't argue that the hidden value is part of perspective when it's not seen. It requires a line of sight for it to be part of your vision and therefore would be part of perspective. But if it isn't because it's below the curve of the earth, sorry, gentlemen, you can't even reduce, you can't play with that value. It's set in stone. It's not part of perspective.
Yeah, it's a geometric value. What they can play with is the other target. The one that we say isn't there and they say is. Well, theoretically, they can say this target is in the foreground at 1.5 feet, at 1.5 miles when viewing this 30-mile observation. Let's have a little look at the angular size of something that's 1.5 miles away from me based on its size, based on its angular size. Oh, what's that? We don't see any bulge to measure. Oh, well, that's not our problem either. We don't care. That's our point, in fact. There is no bulge. The Earth is flat. You can see for vast distances with only the rules of perspective being applied. So, guys, we don't care about the proportional problem of you calculating out how much obstruction you have from a bulge that doesn't exist. Because, again, that's not our fantasy.
The other thing is, unattainable existence in chat says, Sleeping Warrior, All that I am doing is building an unfalsifiable position which can't be challenged in any logical way. What on earth are you talking about, man? I'm not building any unfalsifiable position. There is already a position in play, and the falsifiable nature of that position is currently under the cosh. It's us that's questioning the falsifiability of the position. It's not, I'm not creating anything. I'm just saying that you guys have failed to do something that you guys ought to have done, because if it's acceptable to calculate for an adjustment based on 7.6R, notwithstanding the fact that it's presuppositional, light doesn't bend at the rate of an arc. Light bends like negligibly, and it isn't worth calculating for by numerous citations. But if you're going to have that adjustment for 7.6R, then it's logical and reasonable to think that there should be an adjustment based on perspective before you do any maths whatsoever. You need to know how small these things are in the distance. So again, the question is, why is the hidden value being attached to an absolute height rather than a relative height? And if you listen to how many times the Rumpus said in that hangout recently, how many times did he say absolute, absolute, absolute? It was like you know, when the 9/11 took place and the amount of times that we all heard the word terrorism, terrorism, terrorism. Well, he was doing that. He was going absolute, absolute, absolute in that rhetorical, dogmatic stance that hopes that we will all adopt that phrase. And me and Nathan are saying, why are you applying it to an absolute? Moron, it should be to a relative. So we should start being dogmatic back, saying relative, 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 because that's the equivalent argument based on his perception. So with regard to the idea that I'm creating anything, that's nonsense. I'm challenging the official narrative that doesn't account for something that it clearly should do, because we all see perspective.
Well, Rumpus was simultaneously conceding our point, because while he's saying absolute terms, he's talking about the calculator. And that's our point. The calculator deals in absolute terms. Yes. And then when we get to the picture with Rumpus, he says, well, the perspective work is done for you, which is another way of saying, yes, the picture has perspective. No, the calculator doesn't have perspective. Hey, Jay. Can you hear us? Nope.
So we have unattainable existence. Sleeping Warrior, why don't you explain how it should be calculated then? I'm not the one claiming that we live in a ball.
Didn't you just go through the burden of proof reversal like 5 minutes ago? Literally, are these guys really that dumb to be paying too much attention to the chat and not what's actually being said? Anthony has just literally had the burden of proof reversal fallacy on screen and read it to the audience. So whoever left that comment, idiot.
Let me just check how many subs this gent has, because he's probably a troll. If you haven't got more than 5 subs, by definition, for me, you are a troll. He has, 1 sub. So we'll not be giving that guy any more attention, because he's got only one person in all of YouTube likes you. Not very good, that, is it? I saw Sean criticizing me because subs mean credibility. Again, with Sean, he's totally taken my position out of context. And again, it's the opposite position. It's not subs mean credible arguments, because if that was the case, then Awake Souls would be the Messiah. What I'm saying, Sean, for the retard that you are, if you've only got 1 or 2 subs, then I'm not going to take you seriously. And that guy's just had more time than what it's worth. So it's not that subs mean prizes. It's that lack of subs means no prizes. Get it right, moron.
We're not here to educate you on perspective, Brenda. Go away and apply perspective to your proof of nothing, presuppositional, perspective omitting calculations that you have used to prove nothing. I'm not here to educate any globe-head idiots about perspective. Let's just get that absolutely clear. The burden of proof here is not on us for a curve calculator. Yeah, it's a curve calculator. It begs the question that you've got a curve. That's our objection. So to ask us to figure out where your fallacious calculator breaks down because it's excluding perspective is an absolute outrage. It just demonstrates the stupidity of Brenda.
And everybody else that accepts the curve calculator is anything other than nonsense. There was a good video in response or against Nathan. I can't remember who it was now, but the idea was that he was saying, well, what he was saying, he got a dinner plate and he got a piece of string and he held it from one side of the dinner plate, but without passing through the middle, he was showing that the tangent of the line that was created with this piece of string was basically demonstrating the bulge would always be at 50%. And I agree. On their model, the bulge would always be at 50% of the distance. However, when you go into the curve calculator and you put in any observation at a distance of, say,
Anthony,
30 miles.
Anthony. Hi, Pele. Can you hear us?
Oh, it's Rio. He's fine.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Oh, have you kicked him?
I'm fine.
Is that
Good
Rio?
to have you, Rio.
Oh, yeah. No.
Good morning. I haven't got the thingy open. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I've got it open now. Where was I before? I've lost my trail. Oh yeah, this guy's rebuttal. This guy, basically, the horizon is always the bulge on their model, and it's always halfway. So we can all work this out. If we've got a 30-mile observation, where do we think the horizon should be? Altogether now, it's around about 15 miles, give or take a little bit of refraction that's negligible, right? But when you put it in on the curve calculator, why does the horizon appear at 1.3 miles or whatever it is? It's like it's 5% of the total distance. That's not consistent with a bulge that's 50% of the distance, is it? And you morons accept it. And it's like another one of the things that you guys just accept without question whatsoever. If you guys can accept, or rather, if you guys adjust for 76R, because it's a credible, that's an adjustment that you guys accept. Okay, well, it's based on a presupposition. It's based on light that don't do what you think it does. But why is it that you don't consider perspective anyway? Because if it's okay to adjust for standard refraction, it makes also sense that you should also adjust for perspective, which is like 10 times more potent than the negligible effect that refraction actually is. And it's not in there. Wonder why that might be.
Because there's no curve. Because there's no bulge. Because
of course there's a curve, Nathan, but you just can't see it.
Yeah, it's like the Emperor's New Clothes, that bulge. We don't see it.
It's just like the Emperor's New Clothes.
And it doesn't matter what... Hey, Goldemo, how you doing?
Howdy, pretty good.
Oh, hi, Lewis. How you doing?
Well done for speaking up. So, how do you pronounce your name? Is it Giordano?
Yeah, that's exactly right, yes.
Giordano Bruno. So, what position of the fence are you on, sir?
I like to stay on the fence, honestly, but if I had to put my money, I'd have to put it on the globe.
You would actually put money on the globe?
Oh yeah.
Do you know
that show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? That was the final question.
There was a bookies in Scotland that refused a gentleman's bet that the Earth would be declared flat in a bookies, so they wouldn't take his bet.
They wouldn't take your bet. Hey, Milo, how you doing?
Hello.
Good to have you.
This is where it goes down south. What have you got today for us, Milo? Have you come back with any good?
I just wanted to say a few things. Do you guys accept pressure gradients on Earth?
Sure.
Well, where's the container that the pressure gradient sits in?
No, but I mean, before we get to that point, I just want to know if you guys accept that depending on your altitude, there's more or less air.
Nate, do you want to share my screen? I'll have
Yeah,
this.
if you can just bring up the definition of high troll account. Let's just kick you out before you cause trouble. So, yeah, if Anthony can bring up the definition of air pressure, or pressure, that'd be brilliant. We're just going to figure out what you're asking us about, Milo.
Definition of pressure.
Correct.
The continuous physical force exerted on or against an object by something in contact with it. The use of persuasion or intimidation to make someone do something. Attempt to persuade or coerce someone into doing something. So it's the continuous force exerted on or against an object by something in contact with it. The continuous physical force exerted on. Is there a physical force involved with pressure?
I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, that was not really my question.
well,
I'm just trying to see what you mean by pressure gradient.
What we're saying is,
like for example, like the pressure at the base of Mount Everest is a different pressure than the top.
Well, there's just less air in it, but we're still at I believe we're still at the same pressure, are we not?
No.
There's just a different type of air there.
No, if there's less air, then there's less air pressure.
No. There's less oxygen and heavy airs in the atmosphere, and you've gone above all them, and you're getting into the less airs.
Yeah, no, but you can still take a pressure. You can still measure the pressure from the base to the top of the mountain. You're not necessarily measuring the oxygen. You're just measuring the pressure. Air doesn't mean oxygen. Air just means whatever gas is present.
So the
Where are you getting the
at
pressure
top of
from?
Mount Everest
The
is
pressure
30.
is a measure. Sorry to interrupt. The
Wait,
pressure is a
give me a
measure.
second, guys. Give me a second.
Well, mute yourself then, Milo. You want to mute, Milo?
So it's 33.7 kilo. I'm guessing that says kilopascals. So the pressure at sea level.
Still there, Anthony?
Yeah. Am I muted?
No?
Yeah, I'm still here. Did I drop?
No, you just cut out for a second.
Standard sea level pressure by definition equals 760. So 14.7 pounds per square inch. And what was it at Everest? 33.7 kilopascals. So KPA 2 PFI. Ah, done the wrong letter there. What was it? What did it say for kilopascals for Everest?
So I'm still not to establish where the container comes from. So it's saying the pressure is something based on what it exerts on something. So what's this pressure coming from? What's it exerting its force on?
As far as I know, it's everything. And I don't know the kilopascals, but I know at sea level it's 14 pounds per square inch, so 14 psi.
Yeah, and it seems
And I
to
think
be
the top of Mount Everest.
it seems to be 1/3 of the pressure at the top of Everest.
Right.
So,
well,
so
yeah,
that pressure,
just about there, like four,
what's
four
it pressing
psi.
on? At the top, what's it pressing on? To get pressure, it's got to be exerting a force on something. So at the top.
Yeah, on everything.
Yeah, on the top though.
Basically.
And it has to be in contact with it as well.
So what's it in contact with?
What
What's the roof made of?
The way I started to conceptualize it when I was younger was like the ocean. So like the atmosphere is basically like a thinner ocean, and the ocean does the same thing. Where at the bottom of the ocean there's more pressure, and at the top there's less. And it's basically just because of the weight of the ocean itself. And so it's the weight of the atmosphere which is causing this pressure. So down here there's a bigger weight.
The definition says the continuous physical force exerted on or against an object by something in contact with it. Is the atmosphere in contact with the Earth?
I'd say so.
And what about the ceiling? What's it in contact with up there?
And I don't know if there is a ceiling. That's
well, there must be, because you're saying there's pressure, right? So we've just defined what pressure is.
I'm not even sure that the atmosphere is in contact with the Earth.
Maybe not, but in either event, in order to have pressure, it needs to be in contact with something. So at the top of your system, you two are globe earthers. I'm asking Milo and Gold, whatever you're called. What's it in contact with?
Bruno.
What's it in contact with?
Well, like I don't think there's a dome or whatever, and so
I'm not asking you what I don't. No, listen to my question. Listen to my question. Shut up and listen. What is it in contact with? Don't tell me what it isn't. Or is.
So I'll tell you right now. So we noticed that on the sea level it's 14 psi, and at Everest it's at 4 psi. So if there was another Everest on top of Everest, the psi at the top of that second one would be even less than 4 psi, and a vacuum would just be, I guess, 0 psi. So eventually, the air pressure does become 0 psi.
Yeah, but a vacuum by definition has nothing in it. It has no particles in it whatsoever.
Right. Okay.
Not okay. So we're asking, where does the pressure come with? What's it in contact with? Specifically, what's it in contact with up there?
Space.
Space. You've just heard this from Anthony. He's just explained to you. Space is the lack of anything. So what's it in contact with? It's not in contact with the lack of something to have pressure to begin with. So what is
not in contact with anything.
What is it in contact with? Space is not an answer. That's the lack of something.
So nothing. There's no
It
barrier.
can't not be in contact with anything. It must be to have pressure.
No, that's why.
Yes, we've just defined the terms for you. That's what pressure is. That's the definition of pressure.
So where's the container between 14
I'm
psi
asking you
and
that,
4
you
psi?
stupid dick. Don't ask me my question. I'm asking you.
Well, I'm establishing that there doesn't need to be a container because there is.
Yeah, there does. We've just defined the terms of what pressure is.
Where there is a pressure because you can calculate.
Yeah, we know there's a pressure, and we also know what pressure is. You're not going to get to redefine what pressure is. We're asking where is it in contact with something up there?
Yeah.
Well, the pressure at the base of
Not
Mount
at the
Everest-
base! What kind of a retard are you, you deaf? Up in the sky. Try to listen to the question, you complete idiot. I'm asking you where you get the pressure from up high, not near the base of a bloody mountain.
You're saying that it necessitates a container, and I'm trying to tell you that it doesn't.
I'm saying that's the definition of pressure. It's not anything to do with me and my assertion. It's a definition.
It doesn't need a container.
Yeah, that's the definition of pressure. It has to be exerted on something. So
Well,
you're not going to redefine pressure here. Are you really that arrogant, you stupid Mongol?
No, it's just that rule breaks down at the Earth level.
Yeah, that's our point. It breaks down when you claim that there's a bloody vacuum up there. That's our point.
There is no container because if there is a container, we'd have 1 psi. It'd be 14 psi everywhere.
That's just an assertion from incredulity. That means nothing. It doesn't answer my question.
No,
you're saying
1
there is pressure. Pressure, by definition, requires to apply a force on something. So our question to you is, what is it applying that force on? And so far, your answer is on nothing. That doesn't conform with the definition of pressure, something you guys have raised in this conversation. We're not outlining terms, we are defining them.
Well, the pressure in a container is uniform. The pressure on Earth isn't uniform.
No, it's not.
So,
you can have so you're telling me when you shake your shaving foam bottle, that's being shaken up because it's completely even inside? You absolute idiot.
Yeah.
No, you shake it because it's not evenly dispersed, so that you even disperse it. That is what you do when you shake a shaving foam bottle. Yeah, you can have pressurized gradients inside a system when it is exerting pressure on its walls. That's what pressure is.
There is no pressurized gradient inside a shaving cream bottle.
Oh,
You're
really?
just making that up.
So the more dense particles don't sink to the bottom. So you just come up to your shaving bottom, you press it, and everything works fine.
That has nothing to do with pressure gradients.
It has everything to do with pressure gradients. It separates
There's
out.
only one pressure inside of a shaving cream bottle. There isn't multiple layers of pressure.
Right, pressure, by definition, requires to be pressing on something. That's what pressure is.
There's only one pressure inside of a container. You can't have a pressure gradient inside of a container.
That's complete nonsense. You can have a pressure gradient if you have more than one gas in the container. It will separate itself out. That's what it does, based on its density. Sorry, if you put helium and nitrogen in a container together, are you telling me that they evenly disperse?
No, but
Right! You complete idiot. Stop making stupid assertions. You're making yourself look really stupid.
The pressure...
So we can have a pressurized gradiated system inside and outside. No? Oh, the outside bit fails because it needs to be pressurized. It needs to be putting a force on something.
Let me explain. If you were to put 5 pounds of pressure of oxygen inside a container and 5 pounds of pressure of helium inside the same container, you would have 10 pounds of pressure inside this container. You would not have a pressure gradient.
Yeah, we would have the different gases separated.
Okay. Yeah, and they'd be 5 pounds at the bottom.
What's your point? We are now describing what happens inside a container, and we haven't established what that container is on Earth. So
you haven't
again,
established a pressure gradient inside any container.
Shut up. We're back to my original question. What in the sky is the pressure exerting its force on?
It's being pulled towards the Earth.
No. You don't understand the definition of pressure, do you? Anthony, any chance you can bring up the pressure definition once more so we can explain to these rather slow individuals precisely what the word pressure actually means.
Right.
Why
You're
don't you go
saying
look up
we
the
live,
definition real quick and then come back?
you're saying we live in a container, but a container necessitates a uniform pressure.
No, it doesn't.
Not a pressure
Different gases
gradient.
of different densities separate out, creating
Density has nothing
a
to do with pressure.
gradient. You are an idiot.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're saying that if I have 5 pounds of pressure of helium in a container and 5 pounds of pressure of oxygen in the same container, that there would be different pressures inside the same
It
container.
would separate
when there would be a
into
uniform.
a gradient.
It would not, because if you took the pressure of the base of the container, you'd
Who
have the same
cares?
pressure.
You
as
are
the top.
defining this inside containers, and we haven't established a container for Earth. This is the point. Arguing
because
about
there-
this
there-
semantical point is irrelevant. If we have pressure, we must have it exerting a force on something. That's what pressure is. We are still at my original
agree.
question. What
Go
is
ahead,
it
Gio.
exerting the force on?
Go ahead,
Well,
Gio.
the reason I brought up the ocean, sorry, the reason I brought the ocean as a comparison is because the atmosphere is like a thinner ocean. So it's air, but it exists the same way. And if you remember the ocean, it has a very, very high pressure at the bottom, and as you rise up, it gets lower and lower pressure, and it the same way as the atmosphere does in a gradient way.
Yeah, but
And
what
if you notice
causes
here we go. There's the weight. Okay?
Yeah.
There's no top
Gravity.
to the ocean. There's no top lid to the
Yeah,
ocean.
there is.
Okay,
It's
there's
the
a,
air.
there's a
Well, there
space
is a
where the
container.
ocean
There
meets
is.
the
There's
air.
air pressure on it, isn't there?
Well,
there is
exactly.
also a container
so-
of the oceans, right?
Yeah.
It's the beach.
Right.
No, there's no top container to the ocean.
Yeah,
And so what happens
Yeah, but
whenever,
I
whenever the
told
ocean
that.
meets the atmosphere?
Sorry, there is. There's air pressure on top of it.
Right. And so if you imagine,
So back
air
to our
pressure-
question. So we've established that there is a lid on top of the ocean. Excellent. What's the lid on top of Earth?
like I said, the ocean, the air
Not
starts
the
at,
ocean, you are deaf. Listen carefully to my question. I am not asking for the lid for the ocean. I am
Right.
asking for the lid on top of the air. What is it?
There is no lid.
There can't be no lid. By definition, if we have pressure, it is exerted on something. So you can't have there not being a lid. That defies the terms of pressure.
The bloody wanker, Nathan.
I'm trying to
Sorry,
answer
don't
the
call me a
question.
wanker. We're defining terms, and your nonsense that it doesn't have a lid is nonsense. It
I'm trying to
defines the
answer the
terms
question now,
of
Lenny.
pressure.
Nathan, can I just say something? I think perhaps the term pressure gradient is being conflated with a density gradient, and that which is in our atmosphere is being incorrectly described as pressure is actually density.
It's not.
How do you know?
It's literally pressure, because you can measure this yourself. Take a pressure gauge,
No problem.
bring it to the base
no
of a
problem.
mountain.
No problem. You can assert that it's pressure, but pressure has a definition, and pressure requires walls to press upon. It is as simple as that.
Okay.
No, and a container necessitates a uniform pressure system, not a gradient.
So if you got a cup, hold on one second.
The
Let me
container,
do a quick
that debunks the
analogy.
container.
Hey, Stephen.
Let me do a quick analogy. If you got a cup and you put a little bit of water, a little bit of oil, kerosene, and alcohol, you let it sit, and it's going to be divided by different liquids, right? Now, try taking out that container. What's going to happen? Everything is going to spill out. What's in the air? It should be a container versus with pressure. It could be high pressure, lower, lower, lower. What is the divider? Dividing the pressure versus the no pressure. It has to be a divider.
Gravity. It's
And
gravity.
what's on top of that cup? What's on top of those liquids?
Sorry, what's
It
the
meets the
scientific...
atmosphere.
Sorry.
Yeah,
And
the
it's not
analogy is on
gravity.
the side. The container is holding the liquids in.
Sorry, did
So
I hear
versus
gravity?
the air, it should be a container in the top, dividing the pressure versus the no pressure. If you believe there's a no pressure system above.
Gravity acts as a container on Earth.
Sorry, is there scientific evidence of gravity?
And certain things.
Sorry, did you
escape
listen to my
Earth's
question?
Gravity.
I've just heard gravity. Is there scientific evidence to back the assertion that we have gravity?
Yeah,
Pressure
thanks,
gradient.
Walt.
Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Pressure
was that
gradient.
someone? I hope that was someone joking when they said pressure gradient.
Yeah, that
Right,
was
let me ask the guys that think that we live in a pressure gradient. If we were to take
Sure.
the lid off an aerosol can Do you think that the pressure gradient would equalize itself the way you guys are describing it, or would it explode because there's pressure inside the can?
But do you know why it
Where's the gravity in that example? Where's the
Yeah,
gravity?
it's on Earth. We definitely have gravity that you believe existing, the force of attraction or the bending of space-time, depending on which bullshit you want to believe. Yeah, that would still apply in your fantasy world when you took the top off the container of a pressurized shaving foam bottle. So, yeah.
If I could still answer the question, I haven't got a chance to answer before.
Okay, no worries. I'll ask it again just so it stays nice and concise. What's the lid on the top of this container, Earth, if we have pressure specifically?
Just like he'd imagine the coffee cup with all these liquids and getting to this point. That's what we mean by a gradient. It starts at 14. It doesn't just shoot up to 4. It goes from 14 to 14.9.
Yeah, you're detailing the pressurized gradient system, right? You're not explaining what the lid is.
Well, you haven't let me get to the end yet. When it gets up to 4,
does that turn into 0?
Exactly. Well, it's going to keep going. It goes from 4 to 3.9 to 3.8, and then there, there's thinner parts of the atmosphere above that. And it begins to like 1, then 0.001, then 0.0001.
What? Sorry, hold on. What are you describing? 0001 what? Pressure?
Atmosphere. Most likely it's hydrogen and
hold on. Atmospheric pressure?
That's right.
Oh, well, pressure requires something to be pressed upon. So what's the lid it's pressing upon at the top?
So what's pressing upon the 14 pounds of pressure at the base of Mount Everest? What's keeping that from going up?
The weight of the air above it.
Right.
And what's okay, and that's exactly the same thing. The higher you go, and then eventually there's no weight above, and then there's zero.
What's pressing them on that top part of it then?
Well, gravity is pulling down while the air is trying to go up.
What's the pressure pressing against the pressure? You don't listen to the definition of terms. So pressure has to press on something, not get pulled by a fictitious force there is no scientific evidence for.
The press is against Earth.
Sorry, at the bottom it does. What about at the top? At the top?
At the top there is no pressure.
Sorry, the pressure that you are describing has to press on something. That's the definition of pressure.
If we live in a container, yeah, but we don't, so...
Well,
we can throw that away.
So therefore pressure doesn't exist.
So we don't have any pressure. That seems like a stupid globehead position to take. So you're saying because we don't live in a container, pressure ceases to exist. What kind of a nutcase are you?
No, because only if gravity didn't exist would there be no pressure gradient.
Gravity there's no proof of. There's no scientific evidence of gravity, but there's definitely scientific evidence of air pressure. But based on your nonsense and redefining of the term pressure, you feel that you would rather accept a pseudoscience force that is unproven over and above the actual very real effect of air pressure, which we do definitely encounter.
Even if you forgot about gravity and you just imagine it was the weight of whatever, even a fat man.
Sorry, why are we imagining things? I've just explained there's no scientific evidence for gravity. Why am I now having to conceptualize something? There's no scientific evidence for gravity. I don't want to conceptualize anything here.
As I said, forget about gravity then. Forget about gravity, just imagine the weight. The weight of these things go down. Okay, so something heavy on top of something else is going to put pressure on it. So you imagine a fat man putting pressure on a little man. Now, if you imagine the higher up you go, there'll be literal smaller and smaller men. And those small men are still going to create pressure.
Not air pressure, though. We're talking about air pressure. Gas pressure. These are solids, you absolute retard. Why are you talking about the pressure of fat man?
Because you won't let us use gravity.
Sorry,
so
we're talking about gas pressure. Are you an idiot? I don't care about the pressure exerted by a fat man. We're talking about gas, a completely different state. Are you an idiot?
You're asking about the pressure at the top of the atmosphere? And when he brought up gravity, you wouldn't let him do that.
You guys have asserted this. This is your assertion. We have simply countered your assertion by asking, where are you getting the pressure from?
We're telling you the weight of the atmosphere above it.
And what's the container for the weight above that?
There is none.
There must be. That's the definition of pressure. That's the definition. You're defying the definition by saying that.
And that's okay.
No, it's not. Yeah, you don't get to redefine terms here. My God, these globeheads. You do crack me up. Well, I'll just change the definition then. No, that's not how it works, I'm afraid, lads.
Even the smallest hydrogen atom has mass. Okay.
That's fascinating. That's really interesting. Yeah, it does have mass, but it is in fact a gas. And that is what we are describing here. Unlike your fat man, who may have gas.
Yeah, but in a container, there's a uniform pressure, and that's something that you guys have to deal with. and we don't
have
have
to
a
deal
uniform
with it. We
pressure.
understand implicitly that to have pressure, we require a container. We're asking you where you get the container, and you're saying we don't need one because you're idiots.
We don't have one because there is.
Yeah, I know you don't
uniform
have one.
pressure.
We know that.
So then how
That's
do
our
we have
point.
pressure, man? How do we
Yeah,
have
we do have pressure,
at
though,
all
yeah.
if there is no container?
How don't we have a
How?
uniform pressure if we do have a
You're
container?
talking, bro. You're talking about uniform.
It needs
How
to
do
be
we have
uniform if we're
pressure
in a
at
container.
all?
The
Dude,
pressure
how
comes
do we
from
have
weight,
pressure
the mass
at
above
all
it.
without a container?
Because the
At
pressure
all.
comes from weight. The pressure comes from weight, not from a container. You understand? It's a different definition for pressure for when it comes to the atmosphere.
I see.
Right.
So
You
it comes from. Hold on.
You don't use
So
the
it
same.
comes from weight.
You don't use the same definition.
Dude.
You don't use
So
the
the
same
weight is the
definition
cause.
as,
Sorry,
as
the
pressure
weight.
in a container.
So the weight is the cause, not gravity. Weight, right?
What causes
Gravity
weight?
creates the weight.
Sorry,
Well,
causes
the definition
there
of
is
weight
no
is
scientific
something
evidence of
understand.
gravity. So if you're going to try and assert the scientific cause and effect, then you're going to fail miserably, lads.
Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you see the problem here? Yeah, you guys have got some beliefs you need to address. You understand?
No, the Cavendish experiment already shows that.
Oh, the Cavendish, the affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy known as the Cavendish experiment. Ah, brilliant. If gravity exists, then objects of mass will attract one another. Objects of mass attract one another. Check out this bullshit experiment. Therefore, gravity. It's called a formal logical fallacy.
How?
Because you are affirming the consequent. That is what a formal logical fallacy is. Affirming the consequent. An example would be, if I eat a 12-inch pizza, I am full. I am full, therefore I ate a 12-inch pizza. Oh, hang on, I had Chinese food. Oh, so it doesn't necessarily logically follow that if I ate a 12-inch pizza, I am full, means that if I am full, I ate a 12-inch pizza. So if gravity exists, objects of mass will attract one another. Objects of mass attract one another. Ta-da! Cavendish experiment. Therefore, gravity is real. No. That's an affirming the consequent. That's a formal logical fallacy. That's why you guys get talked over. That's why I shut you up when you make these logical fallacies and assume that gravity is real. Because gravity, the thing you're claiming, means you can defy the terms of a gas pressure, is just a logical fallacy. Whereas gas pressure's real. Bit like perspective.
You're ignoring the null, though. The
What
null,
null?
hypothesis.
What null? The null is
The null
basically
that
the complete opposite of your alternative hypothesis. So therefore, if you say, if gravity, then objects of mass attract one another, then you say, if gravity, objects of mass will not attract one another. That's the null. It's the complete opposite. If gravity, well, you can't manipulate gravity. Oh, well, that's a shame. It doesn't form part of the scientific hypothesis.
Though. That's not the hypothesis.
Why do you interrupt me when I get to the crescendo? You can't
That's not the
formulate
hypothesis.
gravity, right, which is an effect, and manipulate it as a cause. It's just nonsense.
It's not
Yeah?
the hypothesis.
What's your hypothesis? Have you got proof of gravity? You're going to now give me scientific proof of gravity.
Objects of larger mass attracting objects of lesser mass is the hypothesis.
Yeah. So
No, it's a formal logical
You manipulate
fallacy.
the-
I've just gone through this. You are affirming the consequent. That's what
The
you're
context
doing.
of
It's
Earth,
a
how do you
logical
manipulate the Earth?
fallacy.
Force of attraction.
No, in the experiment, you manipulate the mass to
Right. But you're saying the cause is Earth's gravity, right?
No, that's not the cause in the Cavendish experiment.
Oh,
That's not-
excellent. So we haven't got a cause that is gravity. So it doesn't establish gravity as the
Exactly.
cause of anything.
It establishes a force between objects of mass. That's what
Right.
it establishes.
Right, that would be what you call gravity, you complete idiot. Wow, you really are
Okay.
slow today, Milo. This is fun.
So
You have to establish the force before you give it a name. So
Oh, really? You have to establish it, do you? What, by making one up?
no, there's a force. If
Oh,
there
there is a force. I'll just not make it up, but just assert it with a strong tone.
Milo.
Hey, Anthony.
Milo.
Hey, Anthony. Can I ask you a question, Anthony?
No, you can sit here and have me ridicule you for your stupidity, you complete idiot. Yeah? You don't have scientific proof of gravity, yet it is your excuse for not having a lid on the container of Earth. You're all retards.
Anthony, can
No, not Anthony. My name's Nathan, and I am holding you accountable for your nonsense and idiocy, Milu. You are a retard, and I am going to point this out till the cows come home because you're stupid.
Okay, I'll ask you then.
No, don't ask me anything. I'm asserting that you are a buffoon and you've made a very big fool of yourself in front of 200 people today. You are an idiot. Thanks for coming on, Milu, and demonstrating how stupid the Globers are. Really appreciate it.
Milu, what was your question? Can an object move what?
Yeah. Can an object move without a force being exerted on it?
Yeah.
No, it can't.
Do you want to see proof that it can?
Show me.
No worries. Give me 2 minutes, Nath. I'll find the link. 1 sec. And when I
Well,
show you
in the
this, I
meantime-
expect a retraction.
All right. In the meantime, Milo, if you are measuring two objects of mass,
right,
and you do in your experiment, you do figure out that they are attracted to each other.
Right.
What's the cause?
Well, before we get there, we have to establish that there's a force. We have to establish that an object cannot move unless there's a force exerted on it.
Right. But listen,
Right?
listen. You wouldn't.
Can we agree to that?
Okay, Okay, I understand what you're saying.
But can we agree to that?
No, we can't. You don't make an assumption. That's not part of the scientific method. The first thing you do is observe a phenomenon. Some of you retards think that you start this methodology by making an assumption. That's because you're retards and have been misled. Yeah, that's not what you do in the scientific method. The first thing you do is observe a phenomenon. That's what you do. Then you move forward and formulate a hypothesis with an independent variable. Now, the main thing about an independent variable is that it is A, your presumed cause, and B, manipulatable by the researcher. That is all.
Milo, when have you observed two objects of mass attracting each other?
In the Cavendish experiment.
Sorry,
Alan,
natural
did I ask you
phenomena.
this days
When have you
ago?
observed this
I asked you this
in the
days ago.
natural
Where does that
world?
happen in real
Not
life?
when you have
Still haven't
engineered
come up
it
with
to
it.
happen. When have you observed a phenomena of objects of mass attracting one another?
Nate?
The Cavendish experiment is the natural
hang on,
world.
we got Anthony,
Nathan.
Anthony,
It's
so
not the
what have you got,
supernatural
Anthony?
world.
Okay, wait, stop, Milo. Hold on. Let me. No. The Cavendish experiment is not the natural world because it is a construct that Cavendish constructed.
Yes,
It's not
that's okay.
natural.
Right, we're
It's
trying to
not-
get to step one of the... This is typical. You literally cannot get past step one of the scientific method, you complete idiot.
Can I just go back real quick? Just
Sure.
go back real quick. Okay, so now
Sure.
we have to then ask this question.
Mhm.
Why is Cavendish performing this experiment at all? What is it that Cavendish experienced and observed where he saw and experienced two objects of mass
Yeah, that's a good point.
attracted to each other?
I asked him this 3 days ago.
But
He had no answer for this.
Don't say but
Why aren't we asking why the
No,
objects are
no.
Not why aren't we
no.
asking?
No, you are avoiding my question.
Okay, objects fall towards Earth. That's mass attracting mass right there.
Okay, listen to me.
That's a
Listen to me.
presupposition.
Please,
That's
please
kinetic
listen to me
energy.
real quick.
That's kinetic energy.
Right.
Kinetic
The
energy.
Cavendish experiment is not dropping something to Earth. It's suspending something, so it's not even the same phenomenon.
Correct.
Yeah, so
Yes,
right.
it is. It's
Can
mass
I have
attracting
Milu
mass.
now?
No, he has introduced potential energy. If it is an apple growing on a tree, it is containing energy. And then it disperses that energy.
Yeah.
That's
Is it potential
potential
energy?
energy being transferred into kinetic energy.
Energy from where?
From the apple. Where do you think?
So the apple created energy.
It has mass.
Right. So the mass created energy.
No,
It's
it just has
An
mass.
increasing mass.
Kinetic
Right.
energy coming
guys don't
from
understand.
potential
The
energy.
energy, the energy from the sun created the apple through photosynthesis, didn't it?
And it gave it the potential energy to fall.
Yeah,
Yes.
gave it
Is that what you're saying?
gave it potential energy while it was hanging from the tree.
That's-
And when that was
That's a
exceeded,
misunderstanding, guys.
simple stuff.
That's not how it works.
Rivers
Every-
create energy in dams.
Yeah,
Look,
that's
the thing-
it's because the water is being pulled down to the lowest place. The dam's not gonna have any energy unless the water.
Yeah, it has massive amount of energy. Are you an idiot? It's got huge amounts of stored energy in the top lake of that system when you have a lake that creates electricity. That's how you store the energy in the water. It's stored as potential energy. What kind of an idiot are you? This is a GCSE maths question. This is a GCSE physics question. Literally, they're asking 15-year-olds this question at GCSE level in the UK. And you're telling me that there's no stored energy in a reservoir? You're an idiot.
What's Newton's first law of motion?
Well, let's deal with Newton's first law of motion.
You guys are idiots. You don't understand what potential energy is. Yeah?
Save us, Anthony.
An object will only move if what is it? For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Is that the one that you're referring to?
The first one is an object at rest will stay at rest unless unless a force acts
All right. So can we deal with your request of me before? You asked me whether or not I'd ever seen an object move without a force being applied. Correct?
Sure.
Can you see my screen in the thumbnail in the Hangout?
2 dots jars.
Yeah, Nathan, am I screen sharing?
You are?
So this is an experiment that's got basically salt water and normal water. The salt water is more dense than normal water. Agreed?
Okay.
Agreed?
Yeah.
So when we put the egg in the normal water, can't remember which way around he does it, but I think the egg sinks, right? So the egg sinks, and then what he does is he changes the density of the water by putting in salt solution. Oh, I think he's going to show that the other one's got a different density to it.
Right, salt water will.
So what he's showing here is that the density of the egg is whatever value it is, but then the density of the water around it, whether it's got salt in it or not, is the difference between the two.
That's right.
Now, show me where the force is when he pours the one. Where's the force to make the egg move?
So the potential energy is due to him lifting the egg. That's one part of the energy.
Hang on, let's not talk about potential energy. Let's talk.
Well, I'm just telling you,
potential energy has two forces.
And so it rises up because of his hand, and it goes back down because of another force.
Hang on, you haven't seen him do it yet. Watch.
Well, I mean, I see it happening.
No, he isn't doing it yet. He puts the salt water in now, or now I think he's putting in the normal tap water.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to stay below it, but stay above the salt water.
No, I think he's putting the denser water on top of the less dense water to change the density of the water around the egg.
Right.
So where's the force that's being exerted on the egg to push the egg down?
That's gravity.
But he hasn't changed gravity. The gravity was constant in the experiment.
He did change the density of the medium. People always bring up the cause. And so I remind them that density.
Sorry, do you want to repeat that? So he changed
would be the density of the medium, correct?
So he changed the density
only has
of the
one
medium.
role to play in that equation, and that's
so you just said it. Why are you now talking all over us? You've already conceded it. He changed the density of the medium. That's what was changed.
But it's still
so you guys think there's no force here.
No need for gravity. No need for gravity.
Yeah,
it is still going down. It's not rising on top of the water.
Even if gravity was in play, it was kept as a constant. So where's the force?
Anthony.
Exactly.
Anthony, can you hear me?
I can.
This experiment does not disprove Newton's first law. I'm sorry.
Of course it does. You said have you ever seen an object move without a force? And I've just showed you that there was no force in an object moving, and I'm asking you to identify specifically where the force is. Now, can you tell me where the force was, please, in that experiment?
This is wrong. It doesn't show any
okay, Anthony, the force is still gravity because the medium has changed. Gravity has less.
The independent variable is not gravity, then, is it?
Right,
gravity
it's the medium. It's the medium. No, I understand what you're saying, but the force ultimately, from their perspective, is gravity. Just like the point that you made.
No. The force was kept constant. The only thing that changed was the relative density that the egg is sat in.
Okay, let me try to say it this way from their perspective, okay? When the water was normal water, gravity pulled the egg down at no problem. When it was in more dense water, there was resistance in the medium that fought against gravity. Gravity is still there. You're right. It's still there, but the medium has changed. The variable has changed.
But the question I was asked was, when have you ever seen an object move without a force being applied? So my question is, what force was applied?
The force of gravity still exists here. What are you not understanding?
It wasn't applied. It was already there.
You imagine acting on all three things at once. It's working on the
Right,
egg,
so
and
it
it's
didn't
working
change,
on
did
water.
it? The gravity
and
was
it's
kept constant.
I
Agreed?
know, but now you have salt water, and the gravity's pulling down that salt water more than the egg.
But that's not a force.
The
That
gravity's
is
pulling the
force.
salt
That's
water
not a
down more
force
than the egg.
acting to pull
That's
the
right.
egg down.
That's what a more dense
But
medium
gravity
means.
was kept the same, though, wasn't it? Gravity wasn't
The
changed.
gravity's kept the same, but the media's changed. And
Yeah,
so the
the
medium
medium's
that's dense,
changed.
more dense, is being held below the egg.
So the independent variable was the medium. The cause was the medium, not gravity.
Gravity
this
caused the medium
experiment-
to be there.
So you say. Can you prove
The
it?
medium is at the bottom because of
Can
gravity.
you prove
So
that
prove
gravity
it.
requires it to be
So
there?
prove it.
I would argue that there's no requirement for gravity whatsoever.
How has this disproven Newton's first law? This is what I'm
Because
asking.
you said it requires a force, and I've shown you that
Yeah.
there was no force present.
How have you controlled for gravity? I'm not understanding you.
He's
You
not
asked me, had I ever
presupposing.
seen an object move without a force, and I said yes. Then I produced evidence that showed an egg move without changing any force, without adding any force to it whatsoever.
He's not presupposing gravity.
So is
Milo.
density a force? Is density a force?
I didn't change. I didn't add the force, though, did I?
And with that, I'm going to say first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. And of course, a massive thank you to you, the live audience, for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. If you hated the show, you know exactly what to do. But if you like the show, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you have not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!